Cal cornerback Nohl Williams can stamp himself as an early day 2 prospect for the 2025 NFL Draft next week in Mobile at the Reese Senior Bowl. We're going to explain that and more coming up next.
You are Locked On NFL Draft, your daily podcast covering the NFL Draft. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back into the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast, your daily podcast covering your favorite draft prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your boy, Damian Parson. I'm an offensive analyst, draft analyst over with Bleacher Report. That is my guy, Keith Sanchez, 2019 national champion with those LSU Bengal Tigers and the director of scouting over at the Draft Network. Guys, thank you for tapping in with us each and every day, being our everydays. On today's show, guys, we're getting into some of the Senior Bowl cornerbacks that can move up in the 2025 NFL Draft. Cal cornerback Nohl Williams, Azariah Thomas from Florida State, and Maxwell Harrison from Kentucky. But before we can get into all of that, guys, it is Crossover Thursday here on the Locked On Podcast Network, brought to you by PrizePicks. Crossover Thursday is presented by PrizePicks. Download the app and use the code LOCKEDONNFL to win $50 instantly when you play $5. Nohl Williams, Keith, maybe after watching tape on him, I think I'm going to come in with a high second round grade on this kid. Like, when I watched his tape, I saw a lot of things that translates to the NFL. First off, for context, 6'1", 200 pounds out of Cal on the season. This guy has ball skills galore, really for the last 2 years at Cal. Talking about 9 interceptions, 13 pass breakups. This season, 2024, he had 7 interceptions on the season. He's where he needs to be. He flows with the coverage. He's scheme versatile, in my opinion. And when I looked at his tape, I saw different things that I really, really appreciated with his game. Good eye discipline when playing from depth, talking about off coverage, zone, against being scheme versatile. He is a good he's a physical press man corner, likes to play with physicality and power in the contact window, loves to dictate that action. He generates those turnovers. The ball skills and competitiveness that he brings to compete at the catch point, make plays at the catch point with his hands. He has really good hands as well. But as well as playing, he plays in the slot also. I wasn't expecting a 6'1" corner, 200 pounds to walk down into the nickel. But when they go to some 3x1, even 4x1 sets, and they have to face that type of offense, he's worked in the slot. And so he gives you that alignment versatility. And then, again, what I love about him, too, is the mental aspect of it, the spatial awareness, the high football IQ. I was watching him pass off routes, Keith, letting guys who enter his zone, if they're not settling down, he knows to keep it moving, stay on the balls of his feet, being I always say, a reactive athletic position. And he does a good job of that as well. There's like watching him in press man. And I think teams that play press man, a team that I know for a fact needs a corner, the Baltimore Ravens, watching him in press man, this guy walks up to the line of scrimmage. His punch timing is good, but his hands are strong. Where he makes contact, he can knock guys off balance, knock him back. He doesn't lock his hip. He knows which hands to use. To me, this guy is Mobile is going to be big for him because I think this is where he played at Cal. He's off the beaten path. Like, people weren't watching Cal to watch Cal. Like, it just was what the team, probably the one game they truly did watch Cal was against Miami and Cam Ward. Like, that's what they were watching for Cam Ward in Miami. They weren't watching for Cal. I think the Senior Bowl for Nohl Williams, 6'1", 200-pound cornerback out of Cal, I think it's going to put that spotlight on him to where he can really stamp himself as one of those high day 2 picks that could be a day 1 starter for a defense.
Yeah, no, I agree with that, DP. And, we've been doing this for a few years now. The threshold for me for cornerbacks is, can you play man-to-man, right? That's my athletic threshold. Can you line up in press man and play man-to-man? The best corners that I've seen at my time at LSU, right, your Derek Stingley's, your Christian Fultons, your Tre'Davious Whites, right? Like, all of those guys, the Greedy Williams from time to time, all of those guys can line up in your face and play press man. And I think that's the litmus test, because when you go into different coverages, cover 2, cover 3, right, and those guys are predominantly playing those. It's sometimes because it's a protected situation of, I don't know if I trust you or the athleticism to be able to move in every part of the field, right? To be able to have the fluid hips to sink in and out of every situation. I like Nohl Williams because I think he can do that, DP. And I just want to see him on a consistent basis. And I think there's nothing like seeing it live, right, and seeing it actually happen. And I just, because I just go back to, and that's why I get excited about the Senior Bowl. You just sitting there, standing on the sideline. It's like, hey, I watched these guys, and then I have flashbacks back to, like, this reminds me of practice, right? Like, this is how you was able to decipher from practice. Even when we had, our mini camps and, we bring in the high school prospects, it was that, right? Like, that's why I was able to tell, like, okay, this guy separates himself from this guy, right? Like, it's just live, it's in person, and you're right there. So I'm with you, Nohl Williams. The ball skills, I want to see if the ball skills translate too, right? Like, was this a one-off, like, one of those seasons where comparable to where one guy has a spike in sacks out of nowhere, right? And he ends up with double-digit sacks. It's like, wait, you just had 3 sacks the rest of your entire career. Or can this guy play man-to-man? It's a vertical route, turn around. He's not panicked, right? He's very patient. I always say that, panic or patience. He's not panicked. He's patient. He turns his head, boom, go up, go get the football, come down with it, right? And I think when you can do all of those things, you check all of the boxes. That's why I always say, like with Derek Stingley, I've never seen him in a panicked phase, right? And when everybody was talking about, hey, it's Derek Stingley or Sauce Gardner, DP, exactly where I stood with that. I'm like, I've watched this guy every single day in practice. I promise you, he is one of those ones, right? Like they like to say, he is different. And you give it 3 years and look how the tables have turned, right? So it's just certain thresholds that you have to put in place when you're talking about the cornerback position. And Nohl Williams definitely has the opportunity to come in and make himself, obviously, the household name, right? I don't think he'll be known across everywhere, but he can make himself a draft community name, because I think right now 100%. He's flying purely under the radar.
No, 100%. And it's like, I think, a lot of people, it might be, I would say it may be a misnomer that the cornerback class is down and this isn't a good year to need a cornerback. And I kind of disagree. It's just a fact of, I think what we've said it the whole time, like, people weren't, same thing was said about safety, like linebacker. It's like, let's watch the players first before we make these just outstanding remarks regarding the entire class. And I think Nohl Williams, like I said, and am I saying he's a first rounder? No, I think top of the second round. And honestly, the combine is going to probably dictate a lot of this too, right? Like, he goes and runs a 4.4, low 4.4, 4.42, 4.41 at 6 foot, 200 pounds. And then his movement skills are good. I mean, they're good on tape, but the field drills, he looks fluid. He's moving, different things of that nature. Yeah, like he's a guy that could move himself up with a strong. This why I love the draft season, Keith. Like, it starts in Mobile, and then we get into the combine, and then pro days, and then we get to the draft. It's a lot of information to be gathered for these guys. I think for him, the 101s are going to be big because he does play so much, he plays so much of mixed coverages. He's used to opening the gate a little early and opening his hips and declaring them a little early. I saw that on tape. Would like to see him stay square a little bit more. When he's playing physical, like press man, like bump and run, yeah, like he'll stay square then. But it's like, if he's soft shoeing, you might see him drop one of those feet back, starts to open the hip, anticipating the release and a vertical stem, things of that nature. Just stay square, mirror and match guys. He's got good footwork. Even like in off coverage, he uses the scooch technique well. Like 1 inch steps, he's got good footwork. I like his hips. I think he flips his hips well. When fit, because I think it was like him versus Elick Iomanner. Elick broke inside on the release and then ran the out route. And to watch him kind of like just flip his hips, turn, and get back in phase and be right there in the hip pocket, I'm like, okay, that stuff translates to the league. You got to have what we call oily hips, man. Those the fluid hips to be able to turn and move and rotate with guys. I think this is a dude that could absolutely be a sticky corner at the next level. And when we see, again, off the beaten path, Toledo last year, Keith, Quinyon Mitchell, my CB1, like the way he played for the Eagles, and the Eagles in the NFC Championship game, he's been arguably their best defensive back. Their quarterbacks really didn't want to test like that. Nate Wiggins, like just being able to be that scheme versatile guy. I think I'm not saying he's going to be drafted as high as those guys, but I'm never going to say never. There's a chance that he can move up into that first round. I'm looking forward to seeing him in Mobile. Those 101s are going to be big for him.
Yeah, 100%. And he does have the opportunity to move up because we're looking for prime, like, with the quote unquote prime positions, right?
Yeah, yeah,
And corner is one of those that we're still looking to fill in, but behind, the Will Johnson / Travis Hunter tier, and then you got the Benjamin Morrison tier. That's three, and then it's a
yeah.
crapshoot after
And
that, right? Like
Benjamin's coming
everybody.
off the hip injury. Him and
Yeah.
Siobhan
So who
Rebel
wants to do
both
that?
coming off injuries.
Yep, 100%. So that's still medicals, right? That they have to kind of push forward and figure out. But DP, let's go down to the south, man. Where we going? We're going to Florida State. Azariah Thomas. Let's talk about this big long corner from Florida State that has a lot of length. We're gonna talk about him coming up next.
Therapy is a game changer. It can help manage stress, improve sleep, and communicate more effectively. But finding the right therapist and fitting sessions into a busy schedule can be a challenge. That's where Talkspace comes in. Talkspace, the leading virtual therapy provider, makes getting the help you need easy, accessible, and affordable. With Talkspace, signing up is simple. You can match with a licensed therapist who fits your needs, usually within 48 hours. And it's convenient. You can have sessions from the comfort of your home and even message your therapist between appointments. Plus, Talkspace is covered by many insurance plans, and for most insured members, there's a $0 copay. It's never been easier to prioritize mental health. As a listener of this podcast, you'll get $80 off your first month with Talkspace when you go to Talkspace.com/LockedOnNFL and enter the code SPACE80 to match with a licensed therapist today. Go to Talkspace.com/LockedOnNFL, enter the promo code SPACE80 for $80 off your first month and show support to the show. That's Talkspace.com/LockedOnNFL, promo code SPACE80. I'm really looking forward to seeing Florida State cornerback Azariah Thomas down in Mobile, Keith. Listed at 6'2", 200 pounds. On the season, he's allowed 0 touchdowns in coverage, 1 interception, 5 pass breakups. And Keith, you tell me if you feel differently. When I watched this kid, I saw good lower body fluidity. He moved well. I think he's scheme versatile, but I tend to think I want him more in a man right now, at least early on, in man coverage, in the man coverage defense. In zone, I saw him get lost a couple times. They like miscommunication with the safeties and the other corners. Like, hey, if they switch release, who's taking who? If this guy breaks down at a 7-yard stop, like who's getting that? I got deep thirds, but then him and the safety both taking the deep route and taking the takeoff or whatever, the go route, and leaving the underneath wide open, different things like that. I think the communication can grow with him. But like you said, he's got arm length. I think he's a good athlete. And I think this guy could be best suited in a man-to-man defense. And just watching him, I'm like, okay, I think I graded him as like a high third, late second, high third. I think it's a good athleticism to stay in phase. I like his process for the most part in tight man-to-man coverage. Like I said, I think his footwork is good. He's got a little bit, like he's got some stuff he's got to work on though. Like he doesn't take on blocks well. Especially not just run game blocks, but like stock blocks. You get the tight end moving up on wide receiver screens and different things like that. You can get to him and whatnot. But I think for him, he's more of a, even with his length, Keith, you tell me if you feel different. I think he's more of a soft shoe man coverage guy, soft press, rather than like when I'm watching Noel wants to get into your rib cage. Like he wants to punch you. And I just look at Azariah. I think he's more of a soft shoe guy. He allows free releases. And if you're facing the Justin Jeffersons, I'm saying let Jamar Chase get a free release because Jamar Chase wants you to touch him. Like he wants you to play physical with him. Don't play his game. It's not going to work for you. You know what I'm saying? I would say soft shoe Jamar. But if you're playing some of these top tier receivers and you don't get hands on and you just give them free releases, like you're playing a Tyreek Hill or some of these explosive guys, like, no, I got to get hands on. So I think he's a good player. And I think he's got a chance to move up. The one-on-ones are going to be very, very big for him, like probably the biggest out of all these corners that we're going to talk about.
Yeah, I look at Azariah is tough, right? Because I agree with the issues with the zone coverage. So this is how I feel. I think that his athletic profile, the length, the stride length, all of those things, I feel like they lean themselves towards him being a zone corner, right? Like when you just look at his athletic profile, the discipline things, I understand where you're coming from the film perspective. I would say this, that to me, that starts to get into the gray area, right? Of like, okay, how does practice go? What are y'all being taught, right? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, what is going on? Are y'all practicing these coverages? Do you know correctly who to pass off, right? Because, like I said, I just remember, that sometimes you're keen on number 2 in certain formations, somebody going motion, y'all don't pick it up the correct way, boom. Coverage bust, right? Certain things like that, and we know that Florida State was not good this year. So there's a whole lot of what's going on over there
Right.
this year, DP. So I look at it and I say this, that the one, and I'm with you, the one drill that I'm looking at is the one-on-ones. Like his to me, his Senior Bowl begins and ends with that drill, right? One-on-ones going against a wide receiver, because you want to know if you have a big, long, lengthy corner that can just get him, like I say, you could play press man, you can soft shoe it, and you can mirror the wide receiver at the line of scrimmage and then turn and run with him, right? Can you do that? I think if he does that, that elevates him. I think if there are multiple routes where he gets lost, I think he gets in the category of like, hey, is this a cover 3 corner? And I think that's when you see him probably fall into the Martin Emerson range. But I do think he's probably has more foot speed than Martin Emerson, right?
Yeah.
But you said the tackling thing. I just brought this name up, but I think it's funny how they probably similar. I talked about Greedy Williams at LSU, right? I think that they have some similar when we talk about build, right? Both being 6'2"-ish, right? Arm length, wiry frame, right? Play on the outside. And I always thought the same thing about Greedy, that once college was over, and obviously we played a lot of man at LSU, but he probably was better suited to be a cover 3 corner, right? And I think you see it's just with all those corners that are extremely long, they have, they're high hipped, right? The transition is just a little bit more difficult for them. And you see it with Sauce Gardner, and that's why it's like, hey, Sauce Gardner, now that he's not going to be playing, we don't know if he's going to be playing cover 3, but if he switches to a man-to-man scheme, you may get different variations of Sauce Gardner, right? Like things are going to change for him. So I look at Azariah Thomas, like I said, I like him a lot. I think the upside is there. I think we're talking about in context of Senior Bowl, it's going to begin and end with the one-on-ones for Azariah.
Yeah, I think him, like his ability to get hands on guys, being calculated with that, right? I remember talking to Quinion last year, who played cover 4. He was like, I'm just trying to figure out my man coverage process, because we didn't play a lot of press man at Toledo. We played nothing but cover 4. So it's like, I'm interested to just see how he handles one-on-ones.
Yeah, and I'll say this, the past 2 corners that we mentioned, Nohl Williams and Azariah Thomas, when you look at obviously there's the smaller wide receivers, right? Like our guy from Jalen Noel, like from Iowa State, right? Who he's a stock all the way up guy for me. I think when we talked about the Tank Dell situation and the Tez Johnson, I think he's that guy. I think Noel will be that guy that's gonna set it off. But I'll say this: when you talk about the Jaden Higgins, you talk about the Ty Feltons, you talk about the Jack Beshes, right? Like all of these guys are bigger wide receivers, and foot quickness is not necessarily their thing, right? The Pat Bryant. So I honestly look at it and say a guy like Azariah should have a good day, because you should at least match up with their athleticism, right? Like if you can't match up with a guy jumping to his hip pocket like a Jaden Higgins, then I think we're gonna have some more conversations to have.
I wonder, and we're gonna see how they split the teams and everything. But if he's on a team with the Jalen, like having that mixture of like size, and then those big body receivers, and then some of these smaller receivers or more quick twitch, quick footed receivers like Tez Johnson, Xavier Restrepo, like I said, Jalen Noel, Jalen Royals from Utah State. If he's on, I want to see him against those type of guys in one-on-ones, right? Because like you said, against like the Jaden Higgins and Pat Bryants, I think that those are the guys that he can get hands on quickly, like literally like disrupt timing, stay hip to hip, turn, look for the ball, erase the rep, right? But against those short area quickness guys, that especially if you're not going to play, or if you're going to try and play soft press, soft shoe, you gotta be very calculated with that, with these quick twitch guys. Those guys with that short area quickness that can 1-2 step, get outside, then snap it down on the quick cut. We watched Tank Dell destroy multiple big corners with that exact same movement. Just inside outside release, like an inside out crossover, left to right, go upfield, explode upfield, make them think it's a vertical, quick snap down. And those guys still running upfield 2-3 yards, and Tank Dell's working back to the football, And it's like, well, that's about 7 yards of separation. You know what I mean? So I think that's going to be a big thing for Azariah. I like him, and I just want to see. I want him to play more physical, impress coverage. You got the arm length, you got the body type. Use it to literally throw off that timing, because you can't mirror and match every single receiver. Darrelle Revis wasn't able to do that. That's why he was so good in press, because he's like, I got the hand strength, I got the punch timing, and I'm just so technically refined. Okay, if I can't mirror and match, I mean, his biggest mismatch was, the guy who gave him the most trouble was Stevie Johnson with the Bills. You know what I mean? Stevie Johnson had the release package, the route running. Stevie wasn't a 4-3 guy either. He was just super nuanced and detailed. And he's like, yeah, this was just styles make fights. And I just want to see how he handles that particular style of wide receiver, because those big body guys, I think he should have some success.
Yeah, I agree with DP. Let's keep this thing going and flowing. Where we're going to Kentucky. We're talking about Kentucky cornerback Maxwell Harrison. We're going to talk about him coming up next.
From the first whistle to the final drive, FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, makes the NFL playoffs even more exciting. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win your first bet. That's $300 back in bonus bets to keep the action going. The FanDuel app is easy to navigate, and the variety of bets keeps every game exciting. Plus, when you win, you get paid instantly. No waiting around for your winnings. Whether you're betting on your favorite team or looking to add some extra excitement to the playoffs, FanDuel has you covered. To get in on the action, just visit FanDuel.com to join today and get started with $300 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com to join today and get in on the action. Make this playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, also an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and everyday shot, for being our everydayers. Maxwell Harrison, cornerback out of Kentucky, listed at 6'1", I believe. I think he's 6'1", 181 pounds per Jim Nagy. This is a twitchy, sudden mover. He's sticky cover corner. He was limited to, I think 6 games. He had a shoulder injury this year, so he missed a good chunk of the season and everything. But this is a guy that plays man-to-man coverage, and he could do it well. But he's one of those guys, and I think for him, I think it's not even a specific drill that I'm paying attention to for him. It's the body type. Like, is he truly 181 or 180? Because we have to think about Emmanuel Forbes, right? And what we saw, being a slender dude that could play from depth and have that ability to take the ball away, closing in on underneath routes. And Maxwell does that at he has a great ability to do that. Like, he does that very well to just jump routes, that twitchy, explosive trigger downhill. And I think he has, looking at his numbers real quick, yeah, he's got 6 interceptions over the last 2 years, 8 PBUs and everything. I remember he didn't even play a full season this year. I think for him, just the body type is going to be big. He's not the most physical guy. And I think that's where it's because he's a very thin, wiry frame, but I do like his coverage ability, Keith. I think if an NFL team can get past his frame and not have the flashbacks to what Emmanuel Forbes looked like in Washington, then we can definitely feel I feel like he could be a not just a starter. I think he could be a good starter in the NFL.
Yeah, no. So I look at him very similarly. I don't know if I put him in the man-to-man bucket as much as I liked what he did in zone coverage, because he appeared to be a very instinctual corner. But you bring it up, Emmanuel Forbes, right? That's like right? You're like, okay, how do we not get that repeat situation? And maybe that's from putting him in protected situation, because I think when Emmanuel started, I don't think he started in a zone scheme. I think the Commanders were running a lot more man, right? And that kind of put him out of place. And I think everything just spiraled downhill, right? And it just went downhill quickly, and it was hard for him to recover. So I look at Maxwell and I say that I think putting him initially in a zone defense, whether that's cover 2, cover 3, even potentially cover 4, right? He seems very comfortable where, he can side saddle bail out of there, right? Keep his eyes on the quarterback and keep everything in front of him. And like you said, like he does a really good job, in my opinion, of route recognition, right? Being able to jump routes, understanding combinations, understanding that, like, hey, if this guy's pushing me vertical, that means somebody's coming underneath me. Things like that. If one is going away, one is coming back, right? Things like that. So I think he's a very instinctual guy. I like him in that position. I just the man-to-man thing, I think because it's going to be a weird evaluation if we watch him in press man and there's hip tightness for a guy of his size, right? But he's going to also, so it's like, okay, he can't play man. So I guess he's going to be a zone guy with a smaller frame, which is usually the opposite, right? Like the zone guys are usually bigger corners, right? You think even back to like the Baron Browners and the Richard Shermans, right? They're usually just big corners, right? And so having a smaller guy who's instinctual, I think it's going to be different. But I do think you talk about somebody that's been off the beaten path. I really liked his film from last year, and I thought it was really good. I think I gave him, off of last year's film, I think I gave him a second round grade, and you just got the idea. He was just a ball hawk, like just found a way to get his hands on a football. So if your team plays, whether that's a lot of cover 4, like I said, cover 2, things like that, I think this could be a potential target for your team.
And I think for teams, like I said, the one-on-ones will be big for him in terms of showcasing the fluidity, if he has it or if he doesn't. But also, I think from a man standpoint, with his ball skills, with his vision and recognition and instincts, he might be a guy when you talk about going third downs, teams go to more open sets. He might be a guy that you kick down into the nickel against slot receivers, different things like that, because he has, like, his footwork is good. Like I said, he's twitchy. The short area quickness is absolutely there. His closing burst is, like you said, the route recognition, everything is top tier. Like he sees it, he reads it. He's very patient with it. He allows everything to unfold, and then his ability to just trigger downhill and beat the ball to the receiver and make a play on it. Like, that's when I was like, yeah, this kid has the ability to take the ball away. And I think for him, it's more so, like you said, man-to-man. Like, what, and not just man-to-man, but with his size, can we play man-to-man against the bigger body receivers down in Mobile? Like, if you get being 6'1", 180, getting matched up against 6'4", 225, CB Nohl Williams. You know what I mean? Like, on the outside, like getting Savion out there, if they're on the same team. We don't know how the teams are going to shake up just yet. But if that's a situation, Keith, like, I kind of want to see it. I want to see how he plays.
I also
that rep, like, against that big body guy.
I want to see his alignment too, though, because I don't know. I don't know for sure if if the coaches make guys like, hey, get a rep in press man, or or can they play off coverage, right? Can they just play man and sit at 10 yards and then just be prepared to drive on anything underneath? So I would be interested to see him, because I believe that, if I remember correctly, he played a lot of off coverage. Right, it's not a lot of press man situations, so you just don't see him. So I don't know what his technique is. I don't know how his footwork is. I don't know if he jams with the right hand. I don't know his ability to turn and recover right. I don't know all of those things. So it'd be interesting to see if he has the option. If I had to lean one way, I think he'll probably still choose to play off man, right? Because I think that's what he's most comfortable in. But it'll just go from there to just trying to figure out, okay, like where do we see this guy in what situations, right?
And it's going to eliminates the being out physical in press man for your size. When you're playing off coverage, instead of trying to be at the line of scrimmage against Pat Bryant or Jack Besh or any of these other bigger, stronger wide receivers, it kind of eliminates that. You make them play your game, and you play catch technique, you drive on it, you try to swat and play the pocket and knock the ball out. I'll be interested to see how everything goes for him, but I think this could be another potential riser. You know what I mean? With his instincts and ball skills and everything else, like that type of stuff, NFL defenses need it. Like, NFL cornerback rooms need a guy like this who could take the ball away.
Yep, I agree 100% with DP. That wraps up another episode, man, of the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast. I want to end this podcast off by saying shout out to our everydayers. Thank you for tapping in with us each and every single day. Every listen is greatly appreciated here. I am Keith Sanchez. You can find me on X at The Talent Code. That right there is my guy, my co-host, Mr. Damian Parson. You can find him on X at DP_NFL. And like we like to say, man, y'all come talk to us because we like to talk back.
Go subscribe and follow for free on YouTube wherever you listen to podcasts. See the latest episode as soon as it is available on tomorrow's show. Guys, we are getting into some of the edge rushers. Nick Scourton, Princely Umamielen. We got a couple guys that we're going to get into from the Senior Bowl to close out the week. So come and join the conversation again tomorrow on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.